Four Nights of the Apocalypse chapter 99 is out, and this was a really good chapter. It wasn't action focused like the last few, but honestly it had a really nice character moment, we had a nice little flashback, and it was emotional towards the ending, as we find out who actually got pierced by Macduff in the previous chapter. And I'm just going to say I called it, and I'll get to it when we make it to that portion of the chapter. All in all, I enjoyed this chapter. I'm really curious to see what happens from this point forward, as I do feel like something big is going to happen, and I'm curious to see whether or not we'll actually get a character death this early in the story. I mean, again, we're practically 100 chapters in, but for a long-running series, you'd expect there to be at least one or two character deaths by the time we reach like the halfway point, and I don't even know if this is the halfway point just yet. Either way, I'm getting really excited to see what happens next. So let's just hit that intro and get right into the review. Chapter 99 of Four Nights of the Apocalypse is called The Words I Couldn't Say. And the first image is literally just Isolde seemingly getting pierced through the chest by Macduff. And I just like that the little side thing of the page literally just says the attack from the blind Master Macduff strikes without mercy. 100% confirming that Macduff is blind, which we kind of could have figured from the last few chapters. So yeah, I just figured I should mention it. But this chapter really starts off in a flashback to the young trio of Gian, Isolde, and Jade traversing through a forest. Obviously setting up from how Jade and Isolde were talking about being attacked by a monster in a forest, and Isolde being carried by Jade at the end of it after being knocked unconscious. And all I can say is this, little Gian, I don't want to punch him. He actually does not seem irritating, he just kind of seems indifferent to Isolde wanting to just find her Prince Charming based off of a fairy tale book that she's been reading. Honestly, through this flashback, I'm not going to go through each and every piece of dialogue, but it honestly does feel like these three have been friends since childhood, and this flashback really shows it with how close they are and how they're interacting with each other. To the fact that they literally enter a forest that they weren't really supposed to enter all on their own, with Jade leading the group. Gian basically being a noble, but Jade seems to be the leader of their group. And I like how when they're talking about this whole Prince Charming thing from a fairy tale book, Jade says that the prince is probably unable to do anything without his servants even wipe his own butt, which obviously was directed towards Gian, so I appreciate the diss. And unfortunately this is before Gian actually becomes an unbearably annoying person. So, you take what you can get. But then Isolde ends up romanticizing about this fairy tale, with the key dialogue being like, when the princess is in trouble, he's always there to protect her. Obviously, we know back during the Leonis arc when Isolde was basically attacked, Tristan came in and saved her, and this ties into what happens a little bit later in the chapter. We then have some dialogue about Dradrin's father being cursed by a demon a long time ago, how there's monsters in the city, and obviously this ends up actually being a nice little Easter egg reference to like Fraudrin possessing Dreyfus, because Dradrin is actually Grihamore's son, so that's actually a nice piece of dialogue, and we don't really get that without a bonus chapter, which I actually put in a short. I'll probably link it up above. And I like how Jade literally just says, come on, I don't have to be a Prince Charming to protect you guys. Then all of a sudden, a giant dragon monster appears from out of the ground and starts chasing the three of them. So they start to run away. Gian is explaining that Guild Thunder actually fought this thing at one point, but they then jump over a hill and down a cliff, trying to catch their breath, as the dragon then tries to jump on top of them to try and eat them, as Jade grabs Isolde and Gian on tight, trying to do whatever he can to possibly protect them. We then get one panel of like a strike kanji, as we then transition to Isolde fading in and out of consciousness as she's being carried by somebody. And there are three sets of footprints, with Jade apologizing to Isolde, but Isolde thinks that the person who's carrying her is Jade, when in reality, as Gian is thanking the person who saved us and for saving Isolde, Jade starts to cry, as he reminisces about what he was trying to tell Isolde, stating that it wasn't like this. Because you were hurt and didn't remember anything, I told you a lie. Which kind of goes back to the last chapter with Jade kind of having a weird expression and there being like little fog that An can see, sensing a lie, as he said that the one who protected her wasn't him. It was actually her real Prince Charming, which ended up being Tristan, which, honestly, updated Prince Tristan child design, he looks a lot like Meliodas, like verbatim, looks exactly like his dad. I almost did not realize the difference immediately. That's how similar they looked at this point. As Jade just says, "I am a liar," as we flash back to the present, with Isolde being shocked as we see the person that was stabbed through by Macduff was actually Jade. He jumped in at the last second, noticing that Macduff was blind, and saved Isolde. So yeah, I called it. This was setting up for Jade to get this big sacrifice moment. Again, it could have been an interesting plot beat if Isolde was the one that died, but obviously we're not gonna take away one of the main characters' potential love interest so early in the story. So Jade gets pierced, and yeah, this shocks everyone. Jade actually, I have to respect the guy because he pulls up a smirk as he's coughing off blood, as what he did distracted Macduff long enough for the mine that Isolde planted on his arm to explode, blowing off his arm, burning the left side of his body as he crashed into the wall, having a serious head injury. Which, yeah, that was brutal. But yeah, wow, that was just insane. I saw that coming. I was honestly curious to see how that was going to play out, but Isolde's mines are freaking brutal. Point blank, basically destroy the man's arm. But An realizes that they can hear sound again, and realizing that he is a Knight of Chaos. But An looks over as Isolde calls out to her, stating, "What are we going to do? He's not breathing." And the bleeding won't stop as she's holding on to Jade as he's bleeding out in her arms. She tries to call out to Jade, just telling him to speak to her, trying to keep the blood from pooling out and bleeding out, with An not knowing what to do. Isolde desperately calls out to him, trying to say, "I'll even go on that date with you. Come on, you still have something to tell me, right? So tell me," as she clutches him to her chest, trying to desperately keep him alive, asking for him to open his eyes. As An is kind of getting like PTSD Vietnam flashbacks, remembering the moment when her mother died, as there's an inner monologue stating, "Mother, open your eyes," alluding to the fact that An probably witnessed her mother's death firsthand, and she knows what it's like when someone dies in front of you, as she's like in shock about to tell Isolde that Jade's already, but then Isolde just calls out to her, saying to hurry and call for Tristan. He has to get here quickly, and An begins to walk forward and away with tears in her eyes, knowing that it might be too late already. But then Macduff gets back on his feet as he tries to compose himself, leaning on the wall. Even though he's the enemy, you gotta respect the dedication to actually fulfilling his duty, because he literally had his whole arm blown off. His left side is burnt to hell, and he basically managed to kill one person. He was knocked with a serious head injury, and he's still getting up to try and finish the job. He gets up saying that he can't concentrate his magic with the pain, but he could easily beat these kids even without his magic. But An asked why he did this, and then in a serious face with the, honestly, I have to say, the text bubble, this is important, the text bubble turns black with the wording turning white as she says, "Answer me," with a serious and angry expression. As Macduff scoffs, says, like, "I need to answer a girl like," and then all of a sudden we get a panel of like strained lines as the next page shows Macduff fall to his knees in front of An, as he's wondering what's going on, with a close-up on An's eye, with the same speech bubbles in the same way, black bubbles with white text, as she says, "Answer me. It better be something Jade would be satisfied with." As Macduff is trying to fight himself getting back on his legs, stating, "Prattling little wench," as the next panel is literally Macduff falling to the ground as he's wondering what's going on. He can't move. "I'm so heavy. It's like I became a mountain." And honestly, I'll get back into this in a moment, but I really do think that An's power just evolved in this moment. She unlocked her Conqueror's Haki. She basically just intimidated the man to fall to his knees. Obviously, that's not her actual ability. I'll get into that once we conclude this chapter. An more or less snaps out of it as she can sense the magical energy. She can sense everyone's magic power that she couldn't sense before. Now, this can mean one of two things. Either, as we see right now, Percival runs around the corner with his group calling out to An, and they can sense their magic as they run up to each other. It's very possible that we're so close that they manage to sense their magic power, or after the conversation that Tristan had off on the side with Io about everything going on with Arthur, it's very possible that she told Tristan everything she knew, and she removed the barrier that canceled out magic detection, thus allowing everyone to find each other, which means next chapter we might actually get Tristan finding out what happened to Jade. As we get the closing sections of the chapter, An runs up and hugs Percival as everyone runs up and sees the scene that we just witnessed. Macduff on the ground, and Isolde holding a seemingly dying, or even at this point dead, Jade in her arms, with the subtext stating, "An unspeakable sadness envelops this place." And we're going to get a color page next week, so that's really cool, right? And chapter 100 is going to be called Flames of Remembrance, and that is the chapter. So obviously I think basically everybody, I'm not going to take credit for this obviously like I did earlier, but I think a lot of people kind of figured that Jade was going to be the one that died, because he had death flags all in this arc, more or less, with how much of a emphasis we've been getting with him bonding with everyone. So yeah, it seemed very obvious, even though it would have been an interesting twist to have Isolde die. But I'm curious to see what everyone's reaction, especially Tristan, once they end up reuniting, will end up being to everything that occurs. The main thing I want to talk about right now is An's evolution. Through the shock of this whole situation and the stress after encountering Macduff, based off the speech bubbles and how she looked and how Macduff reacted, her magical power probably evolved. Now in the Tangled Forest arc, Donnie powers technically evolved with Sin's help, but he more or less just realized the full capability of his power. An, in this instance, through all this stress and everything, probably subconsciously revealed what her power's true ability is. Yeah, she can detect lies and deceit, but it seems that she can literally direct a command towards someone to answer, and so they can't lie. And if they lie or refuse to answer, they will feel immense weight pressing down, like literally being weighed down by their lies and their deceit. That makes things really cool, and I'm glad, because that actually makes this a really good ability for future battles, especially if they fight characters that will end up, lying. So that would be a really cool utilization of her power. And seeing as how she's getting a power evolution, Nazienz might get some sort of upgrade for his abilities for all we know. But I think that's really cool, and it actually maintains relevance for Percival's friends, showing that they are capable, and having them still be capable of growth shows that they will be very useful in the future, and it won't just be solely focused on the main four. But yeah, this was an insane chapter. I liked the backstory. I liked that Jade was basically like pretending and taking the credit that he was the one that kind of saved everybody, that kind of carried Isolde on her back after they were attacked by the dragon, even though Tristan saved them. It was actually Tristan that kind of, saved everybody and carried Isolde back. I like that we got more of the group dynamic before Tristan, and we saw the moment when Tristan basically saved them and they all end up becoming friends, and how that whole group was formed. I like that we were getting set up for it. It was really nice, and it was really touching. Made me feel even worse for Jade in that instance, and I have so much respect for the guy with everything that he's done up until this point in this arc. Hell, even like being proud of himself that he saved Isolde and basically like wasted time for Macduff to actually deactivate the mine on his body, allowing it to explode and dealing a massive amount of damage. Props to Jade, and this was his last stand. It was a damn good one, even though I would have loved to see him fight a lot more. And An's evolution, as I stated, really cool, really awesome. Can't wait to see more. But what did you guys think of this chapter? Leave your thoughts and opinions down below. Your theories. What do you think is going to happen next? What do you think an evolution of Donnie's ability will be? Maybe Isolde or Chion's? And how this whole story is going to play out? And how do you think chapter 100 will do things? Will there be like a big plot relevant moment and reveal in the next chapter? It is the 100th chapter, so I feel like at the very least the end of the chapter will have something big happen. And I'm curious to see what Tristan's reaction will be. Will Jade stay dead? Or will Percival with his powers revive him, or will Tristan get there in time to heal them also? Let me know in the comment section down below, and once more, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps and it shows you guys like the Fortnite's content on the channel, and I can't wait to make more stuff. I got some nice videos planned for the future, so don't worry about it. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.